Alright, hey you guys, this is TsubakiSwagg and I'm coming to you with my review of the Natsu no Taizai 7 Deadly Sins, episode 7, A Touching Reunion. This episode is so freaking awesome. Oh my gosh. We finally, after all the time, we finally get to see how Bon became immortal. And we get to learn a little bit more about King as well. So in this episode, we see Bon. He is climbing this big, beautiful tree that has like little white, like baby pink roses all over it. And he's talking about the fountain of youth, and one lick will give you like 10 years, a swallow will give you 100 years, and I'll drink it all and it'll give you immortality. So he gets to the top of the tree and he's looking around. He's like, I don't see this so-called spirit guardian, blah, blah, blah. And then this little, like, beautiful little girl comes out of nowhere and she looks uncannily like Meliodas, which I feel like is going to come into play later on. But she looks so much like Meliodas, it's not even funny. But she starts floating and she literally just blows him off of the tree. So after all of that, he continued and continued and continued to try to climb that tree, and she continued to blow him off of the tree, and eventually he kept trying, and he finally, after he said that he needed to stop playing around, and he took out his weapon. I cannot remember what the name of that weapon is, and I feel horrible for not remembering it, but he whipped it out, and and while she wasn't paying attention, he snatched the cup. And he was about to drink it, and she screamed, and trees, literally, like, branches came out of nowhere and grabbed him and took the cup away. And she kept asking him, she was like, who are you, and why are you trying to drink? Why do you want to become immortal? And he was like, well, and she said that you need to stop trying and leave now. And he was like, okay. And she said, stop lying. And she read his mind and could tell that he genuinely was like, okay, I guess I'll just give up. Well, and she was like, the wild berries make such great ale, and it would be sad if he could never drink it again. And she was like, who are you, and why are you here, blah, blah, blah. But later on in the episode, they show Bon, he's like walking in the village because Meliodas told him that they needed to set up shop so they could find out some information about the capital of the dead, because they finally got to the city that was close enough to it. And Bon, of course, ran off, and he sees a little girl. She like falls over on the ground. He goes to help her. Her little brother tries to kill him, and it doesn't work, of course, because Bon is immortal. And the kids like freaked out, and then we see Bon, like, while he's talking to the little kids, he gets stabbed in the chest, like literally out of nowhere. It caught me off guard. I was not prepared. And then we see this little kid floating. We find out later on that it's King, which is pretty awesome. So, little kid is floating, and he's attacking Bon and telling Bon that he can never atone for his sins. He's never going to forgive him, blah, blah, blah. He would not tell Bon who he was, because Bon is horrible with names. So, of course, Bon didn't remember, but he wouldn't tell Bon who he was. And then Meliodas and Diane and Elizabeth and Hawk came up, and they were all like, well, of course, like, Meliodas and Diane was like, it's King, blah, blah, blah. Diane got right up in King's face. I was like, I'm so happy you're back, blah, blah, blah. And then King just floats away. And then it's like, okay. And King, like, later on the show, King, he's like beating himself up because he didn't want Diane to feel like he flew away because he saw her, because he has the hugest crush on Diane. Like how Diane likes Meliodas, King likes Diane. And I guess she doesn't know this, so he's freaking out because he doesn't want her to think that he doesn't like her. But he also doesn't want her to know that he likes her, which is odd. But anyways. But then they show, like, Bon, they said that, well, King said that Bon needs to suffer for his sins because he's the one who killed Elaine, which was the spirit guardian. And then they showed like flashes of her like being in like pools of blood and blah blah blah. And I feel like there is a strong possibility that King is Elaine's son, like, because King can float and Elaine can float, and Meliodas looks a lot like Elaine, and there's a possibility that maybe Bond did the do and got 2 babies, but I don't know. So anyways, after all of that, they show like Bond, he cooks some food and he gets the kids to tell him where the capital of the dead is, and they pretty much tell him that there's only one way to get to it, and you have to be dead to get there, blah blah blah, or from the memories of your dead loved ones. And Bond was like, okay. So he goes walking outside, he ends up in a field, and he's thinking about Elaine, and then all those pretty roses come up like out of nowhere, and the thought triggered, I'll call it a portal, thought triggered a portal that opened up for them to go into the capital of the dead. And Hawk saw this, King saw this and flew into the portal right before it closed. So they ended up inside the capital of the dead, and which is shown in the intro, by the way. So yeah, and King was chasing after Bond, telling Bond that he wasn't going to get away, and Bond was chasing after his vision that he saw of Elaine, telling her that she wasn't going to get away. And then they showed like she phased out, and then that was that. And then at the end, of course, they have their little shorts. Like first they showed the 2 little kids, Ellen and her brother, and this woman comes up talking about the capital of the dead and seeing what they saw, and then that was the end of that. And then they showed, of course, like the little chibi versions of everybody, and they show like King, he's floating behind them, and Elizabeth is talking about she feels like there's somebody watching them, and Meliodas was pretty much saying just don't make eye contact and keep going. And then that was pretty much the end of the episode. So as a whole, this episode was pretty freaking awesome, and things I feel like are about to get really, really interesting. We're going to learn, hopefully we will learn next episode about how Elaine became killed, how King ties into this, and yeah, I want to know. I'm so tempted to read the manga, but I'm trying not to. I want to be surprised. But as always, I would love to hear how you guys felt about this episode. This episode was pretty freaking interesting, and I'm looking forward to next week's episode. But as always, please remember to comment, thumbs up, and subscribe. It helps me out a whole lot. And this is TsubakiSwagg saying adios.